Over the course of the war, the U.S. dropped more explosives than were deployed in the entire Second World War. Of those, about 10% failed to explode. Much of it remains buried in Vietnam's countryside. Tony Cheng traveled to the central region, where some are trying to defuse this deadly remnant of the war.
During the decade-long war with America, over 15 million tons of high explosive was dropped on the Vietnamese countryside. Mines, cluster bombs, white phosphorus shells, all designed to destroy, maim and kill. 40 years on, they're still doing their job. Trying to stop that is Mr. Viet. He collects and disposes of old ordnance, mostly from the American War. And the passage of time just increases the threat from these munitions, his skill and knowledge, tools that could save his life.
It just depends what type of bombs you're dealing with. For some ordnance over time, it becomes less stable and very dangerous. You have to know what you're dealing with.
This is what they've collected in just a few days. More unstable bombs have to be destroyed on site. In one container, high explosive, in the other, submerged in water to keep them safe, white phosphorus shells that can be triggered by heat. To give you a sense of just how bad this problem is, there's so much munitions out there that yesterday alone they'd taken 4 calls to the hotline reporting unexploded munitions before 9 a.m. And that's pretty much happening on a daily basis. In the old provincial capital, a small museum has been established to illustrate the extent of the problem.
Hundreds of thousands of tons of unexploded ordnance scattered all over the country.
And we're here in Quang Tri. There's a heavy concentration of red here. Do you estimate there's more ordnance here than anywhere else?
Yes, it was, because Quang Tri was the northernmost province of the south of Vietnam. So it was heavily bombed and shelled area during the wartime.
And here in central Vietnam, the problem's compounded by high levels of poverty, forcing many to search for scrap metal and salvage, often paying a high price in return. Mr. Dang was building a new house when a massive explosion tore off his legs. He had no idea there was unexploded ordnance where he was working, but it ripped apart his life.
I lost my legs. I couldn't do anything but lie in bed, relying on my family for everything. It was so sad, but it was a remnant of the war, and I hated the war.
Through his own resourcefulness and with help from local charities, he makes a living from handicrafts and by growing mushrooms. But neither he nor any of the other recent victims of the war receives any help from the US. The deminers are getting ready to destroy their weekly crop. They follow rigorous safety codes. These munitions have already claimed enough innocent lives. The first detonation of high explosives are buried deep in the ground to avoid shrapnel distribution. But the detonation of the white phosphorus shells illustrates how dangerous these munitions still are, and the devastation they were designed to cause. Tony Cheng, CCTV, Quang Tri Province, Central Vietnam.